coming out.
From the love of liberty, in the fires of hope and prayer, with boundless faith in our destiny, we solemnly declare, side by side we stand, islands of the blue Caribbean Sea. This our native land, we pledge our lives to thee. Here every creed and race find an equal place, and may God bless our nation. Here every creed and race find an equal place, and may God bless our nation.
Almighty God, most beneficial and merciful, Creator of the universe and embodiment of divine wisdom and light, we come before you with thanksgiving and praise. May your will be done in our nation as it is in the heavens. Please bless our political leader, party officials, activists, and all the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Give us the grace to always see good, be good, and do good, and the courage to serve the people. Protect us as we stand against injustice and iniquity, and inspire our endeavors to find the right solutions to the problems that are affecting our fellow citizens. Grant that we may always work together with humility and respect for the greater happiness of all and the honor and glory of our country. Live from the UNC Battleground, this is the Virtual Report, streaming on all platforms.
Good evening, political leader, parliamentarians, councillors, brothers and sisters. Welcome to our UNC virtual platform. I am Councillor Rafi Mohammed, and I am proud to represent the electoral district of 5th Company in the Princestown Regional Corporation. This evening, I am here with my UNC brother, Councillor Calvin Sicharan from Sangre Grande South, and together we will be taking you through tonight's program. Our first speaker is a vibrant, industrious woman who became the youngest mayor of Chaguanas following the 2019 local government elections. Elected as MP in 2020, she is a passionate advocate on behalf of the marginalized and underprivileged people of this nation. Please put your hands together and welcome to the UNC virtual platform, the UNC Education's Officer and MP for Chaguanas East, MP Ms. Vandana Mohit.
This revolution revolution is about restoring our democracy. And this revolution is about stopping this creeping dictatorship. This is the people's revolution. Come on, people. Peoples are turning, your eyes are opening. Welcome to the revolution. People crying out for justice.
Honorable Political Leader, Mrs. Kamla Persad Bisessa, my UNC colleagues, our dear viewers and followers, and you, our supporters present here, a very pleasant good evening. This evening, as I stand here to continue the battle with my colleagues for you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, I want to begin by reminding you that presently, many families continue to face immense losses with the continuous flooding at this very moment. Farmers are challenged by deadly pests posing a serious threat to our food security. I want to remind you that presently the cost of living continues to rise, with every man jack feeling the pain in their pockets, feeling the pain in their wallets and purses, from the poor come right up. And when I speak about purses, you know the PNM, the Prime Minister, love to tell the women of this country to choose your man wisely, or choose your men wisely. But this evening I say, working women, working mothers are working 2 and 3 jobs to make ends meet in this country. I want to remind you that presently, citizens are facing the ill effects of the gas price increase in this country. We are faced with the escalating unemployment levels engulfing the country's workforce. I want to remind you of the rampant crime situation which continues to soar every day with high record statistics. I want to remind you of the deteriorating public utilities services which are affecting the daily lives of all of us. I also want to remind you of the worsening infrastructure as it relates to roads, drains, landslips, which continue to impact on the motoring public. And now, my friends, it may be prudent to stand and say, I told you so, as we did in August 2020. However, we cannot undo our past actions, but it should serve to all of us as a reminder of the future, and we should not repeat the same mistake ever of putting the PNM back in power. I want to remind everyone, and I will do so from now until any election as a member of parliament, destiny, you know they speak about destiny? Destiny is always in our index fingers. I want to share with you, as an MP, as a representative, I have to depend on businesses to help me with many ventures. And I can tell you, sometimes my team will say, oh gosh, Van, we asked that person just one day to help us. How we would ask them again. But really and truly, you know, when you listen to them reminding you of these things, sometimes you just want to get the job done. You want to ask somebody how they could help you with something fast because that person is suffering. But really and truly, how much more will businesses continue to help us represent you, the people, when we have these funding catered for under the various ministries? But you know what the real question is? The real question is, what is really happening with our social support system in this country of Trinidad and Tobago? Tonight, without wasting any time, I want to urgently ask the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, the Right Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley, to immediately intervene in the operations of the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services. By immediate, I mean now, at this very moment. You know why? The clarion cry is not about the competencies of the minister, you know, or whether she should continue to preside over the said ministry, which is a fiasco at present. This is about relieving the stress and pressures on the poor people in this country. And I want to focus a little bit on the social services stress, because many of you are aware of the stress people face when they attempt to access social services grants. Tonight it is about addressing people suffering in this country. Persons are unable to access social services facilities and grants because of the chaos and never-ending scandals plaguing the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services in this current year, 2022. Not before, in this current year, 2022. And I want us to review in date chronology. My friends, in January 2022, let me be precise and exact. On January 31st, 2022, a total of 1,836 social services government checks were stolen from TT Post offices located in Sangre Grande. You all remember this? This was valued at $7 million. Who do you think ultimately suffered from this dastardly action? And by extension, was the recipient of this diabolical plot? Let me say to you, it was not the Prime Minister who suffered, since he does not depend on social welfare grants to survive. It was not the Minister of Social Development who suffered, since she too does not depend on social welfare grants to survive. It was not the Cabinet who suffered, since they do not depend on the social welfare grants to survive. The persons who suffered, and to coin a phrase from my office, the sufferers are those who depend on the state for financial assistance. These are the persons who paid for the crime at the Sangre Grande TT Post office. Those 1,836 persons ultimately suffered and paid the price for this larceny. And I want to refer from a newspaper article how this action affected one of my constituents. And I read for you, February 3rd, CNC 3, welfare recipients feeling tough impact of stolen checks. And it so happened this person is from my constituency. And I read for you, the Trinidad and Tobago Postal Corporation in Sangre Grande may have been robbed, but those who depend on the state for financial assistance say it is they who are paying for the crime. It's exactly how Zoraida Baiju 60 felt when she stood dumbfounded at the checkout counter with her differently abled daughter yesterday. And I quote, "When I told my daughter to put her thumbprint, Baiju said, as the disability check is made out to her daughter Marissa, the cashier told me they're not taking it right now and I will have to go to the bank." A day later, the Ministry of Social Development instructed supermarkets not to honor any social welfare grants for the next 2 months. Baiju did not get the memo. I didn't know. I really didn't know. But going back home was not an option for her and her 31-year-old disabled daughter. She needed sanitary pads, adult diapers, and we needed dishwashing liquid, bleach, and cleaning supplies. Not to mention it was Marissa's birthday, and she wanted a favorite meal of baked potatoes and callaloo. With no money to hire another car to take them to the bank, they were forced to walk. Something that Marissa struggles with, having suffered a serious head injury. I had to let her walk and she started to feel tired and she had to stop down the road and rest and walk again. You have to stand up there and make a line and Marissa gets seizures, so I worried all the time that she was going to faint. While the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services is encouraging welfare recipients to use the direct deposit, which the minister is boasting of, meaning to get people to go to the banks and get your monies through the banks, whilst they're encouraging welfare recipients to use the direct deposit method via their bank accounts, for Baiju, that is not an option. Why? I have to take care of Marissa all day. She has the mind of a child and I cannot leave her by herself. So I'm not working anywhere. What do you need to open a bank account? A job letter. Right? So she has a challenge leaving the child, etc. And I was told I can't get a bank account. So the frustrated enterprise mother said it is unfair that they have to suffer for something that happened in Sangre Grande. Of course, so you see, they are speaking direct deposit, but they are not speaking of the challenges facing recipients as it relates to accessing direct deposits so persons can be relieved of this stress. And I want to move to another matter plaguing the Ministry of Stolen Food Cards. In October of 2022, the Minister of Social Development and Family Services announced that 32 food cards were stolen from an unlocked drawer in August 2022 when questioned in Parliament by myself. Again, who do you think would have borne the brunt of this nefarious action? Definitely not those who sit in the corridors of power and who are charged with the responsibility for the well-being of the citizenry, especially those who are vulnerable. Ladies and gentlemen, it was the persons, the recipients, those who are suffering, that is the 32 recipients of those food cards who went hungry and begged for a meal when it was the responsibility of those charged with administering the grants. Remember in September of this year, when many of you got calls that persons did not get their food card top-up? And the minister never came out and said to any of us why these persons were not getting their top-up on their food cards. It was because food cards were stolen, according to information coming out in October. So those persons would have had to survive by the grace of God. But arising from this incident, we have to ask the minister and the government, why were food cards stored in a drawer and an unlocked drawer and then went missing? Have you ever heard nonsense such as this? Food card, government funds to be given to the poor and vulnerable, stored in an unlocked drawer. We asked the minister why these cards were stored in an unlocked drawer and who was culpable, who was responsible, who presided over this action, what actions have been undertaken to remedy this crime, who and where are the perpetrators, and are they still in the system of the social welfare units? And speaking about that, speaking about food cards, I want to touch a little bit on, these Christmas food cards we get for Christmas to assist the poor and vulnerable. With the help of my colleague who started a lot of work on this, MP Barry Padarath, I wrote the Minister of Social Development on behalf of every single member of parliament in this country, no politics, we're dealing with the poor and vulnerable, asking that given the increased number of persons requiring social service intervention and given the intended season, I am urging you, the minister, that a greater number of persons benefit from this initiative, thus allowing for some measure of relief during this charitable period of the Christmas season. So we are asking the Minister of Social Development this evening to increase the amount of food cards given to MPs to give to their constituents who are vulnerable during the Christmas period from 200 to more. So we call on the minister to assist us. I have written as shadow for Ministry of Social Development on behalf of all MPs for the poor and vulnerable in this country and those persons requiring assistance. I have a very little bit of time, so let me touch a little bit on the $50 million fraud that's happening in the Ministry of Social Development, which is the most disturbing development. Hence, you would have heard my call at the beginning for the Prime Minister's urgent and immediate intervention in this approximate $50 million in public grant funding, which was lost to fraud in the financial year 2021-2022. I want to repeat, $50 million, and let me quickly state, it could even be more. And this information was revealed in the Public Accounts Committee. And I must congratulate my colleague, who is the chairman of that committee, MP Dave Tanku. Again, I must say, and I must ask, why must the poor people suffer? Just imagine how many poor and vulnerable and deserving persons were eliminated from the social services system, whilst this funding fraudulently disappeared. Yet to date, we have not heard of any persons charged or even called to account for these misdeeds. But you know what, ladies and gentlemen, this could only happen under PNM government, where no accountability and transparency are offered, and no explanation are given to you, the people. My friends, to all of these problems, your vote is the answer to all of our problems we face as citizens. What happened to the transportation grant, the $1,000 one-time transportation grant anticipated to benefit 175,000 persons? We are in November. Christmas is approaching. People have no food. Where is this grant? You promised these people this $1,000 one-off grant. Watch them well, my friends. They have an internal election in a few weeks. But people are still awaiting. Gas prices, you're hearing it everywhere, too high. Persons parking up their vehicles. Sometimes your family die. You're going one night because you don't have gas to make it through all the nights to spend time with your precious family. So we ask the government, when will you give the people this $1,000 grant? Do not allow it to be passed off like the cash cards, the fuel cash cards and the public utility cash cards that you promised and never happened. My friends, in conclusion, I have to hustle, so much to say. I wanted to touch on the Auditor General's report, but I may take a day to touch on the fraudulent activities listed in that particular report. So as I conclude, I say to you, the government wants you, the people, to get your act together relative to your documentation and eligibility for social support grants. Yet they cannot get their act together relative to fraud arising out of social support grants. How ironic. No transport grant, stolen checks, stolen food cards, $50 million in fraud, while many are suffering and can't see any future or even a next meal in this country. I say to you, enough is enough, and PNM must go. Long live our party and long live our political leader. I thank you.
Peoples are turning, your eyes are opening. Welcome to the revolution.
People crying out for justice. Some of them crying out for freedom.
We want freedom.
Everybody crying out for democracy. Now it's time to take a stand. Yeah.
Come on! 'Cause this is the
Thank you, MP Vandana Mohit. And I'm sure all of us here sitting here and listening can relate to what was just said by Ms. MP Mohit. Because I can speak as councillors, and I'm sure my colleagues from Sangigandi Regional Corporation can relate to this, as it is labeled that Sangigandi remains one of the poorest regions in this country. So we understand firsthand what was now said by MP Vandana Mohit. Our next speaker is a prominent attorney at law and native-born son of San Fernando. Having previously distinguished himself as a UNC senator, he is currently serving his second consecutive term as the UNC's Policy and Strategy Officer. He is determined to call this government to account for the failure to protect the law-abiding citizens of this nation. Please put your hands together for Mr. Sean Sobers.
The people's revolution. This is the revolution. I want to hear everybody sing. Everybody sing freedom. Man and woman sing freedom. Everybody sing freedom.
Good evening to the Honorable Political Leader, Mrs. Kamla Persad, of Senior Council. Good evening to members of both Houses of Parliament. Good evening to all those watching and listening to us via different media. And special salutations to all members of the United National Congress faithful who make it their business to join us on every single broadcast we have, whether it be these Monday night forums, the weekly press briefings, midweek press briefings rather, the Sunday press conferences, or what programs that we have with Victor Roberts, our Douglas Politics, all these types of broadcasts where we produce this type of information to keep persons up to date with respect to what is going on as it pertains to accountability coming out from this PNM administration. And it demonstrates that we are connected to the ground. We are connected to people within Trinidad and Tobago, not only UNC voters or UNC members, but to all persons within this country to keep that struggle alive for bread, peace, and justice. Having listened to MP Mohit, as she was just speaking to you, you recognize where we are as a country. When we tell you, when our political leader tells you on a number of occasions that we are a failing state under the People's National Movement, you cannot get it clearer than that. All sectors of government and governance within this country is failing. You just heard about the failures under the Ministry of Social Development. There are failures under the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries. There are failures under the Ministry of Public Utilities. There are failures under the Ministry of Education. Our youths are failing with respect to schools. You hear it from our sister, MP Anita Haynes, all the time. There are failures with respect to the Ministry of Agriculture. MP Ravi Ratiram speaks about it all the time. The problems that we face with our fishermen. There are immense failures as it pertains to the Ministry of National Security, keeping the public and citizens of this country safe. Every single sector of Trinidad and Tobago under the PNM is falling, is collapsing. And it is time that you, the citizens of this country, arrest that situation with your voices. It cannot only be the opposition speaking. But in lieu of that, until some of you do in fact find your voice, we will continue to speak. We've been mandated to do so, and we will continue to speak out against that type of tyranny that is plaguing Trinidad and Tobago. As I stand here this evening, I am lost for words, because as an attorney at law, as a son of the soil in San Fernando, as a red-blooded Trinbagonian citizen, I took that time out of my day and I listened to the Commission of Inquiry with respect to the tragedy that affected those divers. I attempted to listen to that horrendous tape that was played with those divers suffering in that pipeline, while those persons in charge at Paria, who could have done more, did not do what they were supposed to do. It was difficult to listen to hear persons more than likely being alive for at least 2 days within that pipeline. The level of torture that those persons would have gone through. If that is not enough in any modern, democratic, transparent society for a government to fall to its knees and ask for forgiveness, to call an election and demit office, I don't know what will. And if that is not enough in terms of failures under the Ministry of Energy and Energy Affairs, we come to crime within this country. Nearly every single person throughout the length and breadth of Trinidad and Tobago has either been a victim of crime or has a relative or friend who's been a victim of crime within this country. And we have been saying it over and over. We didn't just come here yesterday. 540-something murders is not a feat that is achieved overnight. It has been a constant de-evolution of criminal activity within this country that we've been pointing out to you squarely, frontally, every single time we get an opportunity. We take no pleasure in doing that, but we have to. We are barreling towards over 600 persons within this country being murdered. Sons, daughters, mothers, citizens of this country losing their lives, and no tangible response coming from the government. Where's the answer? We spoke about robberies no longer taking place in the cover of darkness. We spoke about public places and public spaces no longer being safe. We spoke about religious bodies and religious entities and churches, mosques, and temples being desecrated. We spoke about indiscriminate shooting with assault rifles within this country. This is not some country somewhere in the Middle East or in some part of Africa. This is Trinidad and Tobago, the home of carnival. All cultures and races blended into one. But outside there is a war zone. And it is tethered squarely to the feet of the PNM. That is the position of Trinidad and Tobago. And it gets consistently worse with them. Collateral damage. Innocent persons who had nothing to do with criminal activity being killed within this country. Being part of a statistic that they should not be. And part of that now, we have innocent children losing their lives. That is the position of Trinidad and Tobago under Keith Christopher Rowley. The Commissioner of Police, Acting Commissioner of Police, admitting that foreign gangs are operating within Trinidad and Tobago. That limbs are being hacked off and placed indiscriminately within this country so bodies cannot be identified. That is your sweet TNT under the PNM administration. And subsequent to all of that, just last week, we had the killing of witnesses. And persons were shocked. Jelano Romney and Mark Mohammed being killed. Witnesses in this country, and persons were shocked. Why? Because Trinidad and Tobago, Trinbagonians within this country have a 5-day-old memory. And I said it yesterday at that press conference. It shocked all Trinbagonian citizens when Candy Ann McIntyre on the 18th of June 2019, a mother, a single parent, carrying her only child to graduation would have been gunned down. Why? Because she was a witness in a matter. And since then, nothing was done tangibly to arrest the situation with respect to witness protection within this country. And then they want to tell you a pack of cock and bull dotishness about how they let the UNC talk. As far as he is concerned, witness protection in this country is doing fairly well. Fairly well. That is his response. And I consistently say, as I said at the genesis of my contribution, we did not get here overnight. A systematic dismantling of crime-fighting apparatus is what brought us here under the PNM. Systematic dismantling of technical and vocational schools. Deputy Political Leader Jillian John always speaks about that. There are so many youths within this country who are not educationally inclined. And Mrs. Preside under her tenure recognized that. And all of government approach to fighting crime, appreciating that persons who are not so inclined, we needed to provide for them so that they don't be assimilated into gangs and participate in gangland activity. When those things are absent under the PNM, what do you think is happening? Where are those youths? And we say this to you because we know what we are saying. Mrs. Preside has standed the test of time with treating with those issues, hence the reason why crime was so low under her tenure. The statistics are there. Under-resourcing of essential crime-fighting apparatus and entities. That is a hallmark of the PNM. And their response to all of that is to blame you. Well, initially, it's not to blame you. They will tell you they need legislation. And when they tell you they need legislation, they'll tell you the UNC is supportive. We are unpatriotic. We don't support nothing. They will bring a whole host of crime-fighting bills to the parliament, and we just walk out and we don't support and rubbish. We have been mandated by our political leader to adopt a particular stance when it comes to legislation. If it's good legislation, we will support it. Most of the time, it's bad legislation, but we're bright. We are real lawyers inside that parliament. We are real lawyers outside the parliament. And we generally are a party full of bright people. So we will fix the legislation. We will fix the legislation. because we know it essentially will be down to the benefit of the citizens of the country, and we let it pass. But when it's truly terrible legislation, we will not support that. And apart from blaming us, they will want to come and blame every other citizen within this country. Guns and all the types of illicit things coming through the ports, they'll blame customs officials and customs clerks. But they won't tell you that the scanners that's supposed to be operating within the port, not operating at all. Illicit activity, a revolving door of illicit activity taking place within the prisons. Hits coming out from the prison, narcotics and all sorts of things coming into the prison. And they'll blame the prison officials and prison officers. But when it comes to talk about the jammers that's supposed to be in the prison, young Atol Hines and everybody else telling you about jammers being there, but the acting commissioner of prisons telling you it have no jammers existing. Who are we to believe? The persons locked within the system or those lying from on top? And every single time there's an issue related to crime, they will want to tell you about bail. I read it somewhere in the newspapers. We need bail legislation. Bail is the silver bullet. Bail is the panacea. Restrict people bail. Interfere with your constitutional rights. That is where they go. There has been no bail for murder for the last 7 years. Akini Charles came out in 2022. And the murder rate within this country has been abysmally high all the time. Restricting persons' bail does not work. You need an all-governmental approach, and that is what the UNC is about. And I am here to tell you, anytime they come to tell you that we are unpatriotic with respect to supporting crime-fighting legislation, this is just merely a sheet that I scribbled together. Imagine if you check the Parliament website. Trial by judge alone, we support that. Sexual Offences Amendment Bill, we support that. Motor Vehicle and Road Traffic, we support that. Miscellaneous provisions, mutual assistance in criminal matters, proceeds of crime, Financial Intelligence Unit, Customs Exchange Control Bill, we support that. Miscellaneous Provisions Bill with respect to protection specifically designed for law enforcement men and women within this country, we supported that. The Indictable Offences Pretrial Procedure Bill, we supported that. Firearms Amendment Bill, Evidence Bill, Domestic Violence Bill, the Electronic Monitoring Bill, we supported that. The Criminal Procedure Plea Discussion and Agreement Bill, we supported that. Well, we supported a version of it. Because apparently, all of us was in the Parliament know what was going on with the bill and the law. And we know that the DPP is the only person with the responsibility to treat with plea agreement and plea discussion. But the mover of the bill, the former Attorney General, he apparently missed that part of the bill. Because he tell himself he could have dealt with a witness in the form of Vincent Nelson. And all that money passing up and down for Nelson, $40 million for SRP here, there, and the other. There are no money for social services. You hear MP Mohit talk about that. But there are $40 million to politically witch hunt people. And when we tell you that all it takes is political will, they've funneled that into political witch hunting. And we tell you again that what the end result is a catastrophic loss of life. More emboldened criminal elements out there because they understand that legislation will not fix the problem. They don't believe that they will be caught. And so if you have a low detection rate, persons will continue to commit crime. And those who are caught, who know that with respect to conviction, the system is thwarted insofar as witnesses not coming to court, or witnesses are being gunned down, forensic evidence is not available because the Forensic Science Center is in a mess. We're fed up talk about that. You have the situation that we are in currently. And instead of coming to the public as the head of the National Security Council, the Prime Minister of this country, and giving you a proper tangible response every single time he mounts a platform, he comes to spew vitriol and nonsense. If he is talking about our honorable leader, he's talking some foolishness about somebody else. But yesterday was a very new low for him. Because Rowley had a meeting yesterday. And he is telling you, the population, you, the public now, stop covering up for your criminal relatives. So he further blame public officials. He further blame the opposition. He started to blame you. Where do these murderers come from? Who are they? Where do they live? Are they part of your family? Are you withholding information from the police? Do you know who has the guns and use them at will upon whom they choose? He blaming you. You hiding for them. It's your fault. Crime is what it is. Not me. What do you know that you keep a secret? The police can do so much. The defense force can do so much. The government can do so much. But there is a lot to be done by the families who are covering up for the gunmen. Blaming the families, blaming the public. He added that public officials also make it very difficult for the government. He said that some of the culprits work in customs and excise, going back blaming public officials. The cabinet has absolutely no control over them because in our constitution, they are subject to the Public Service Commission. So he pelts some blame on the PSC too. Those are the problems in this country that we face. Whether I am in or out of office. Well, brother, just now again out of office. And after all that, you want to tell you about 2,500 cameras. Time and time again, we've spoken about the implementation of cameras, CCTVs, with respect to the fight against crime. How many times we've said it, going into police stations, into charge rooms, and seeing that TV screen within the charge room blank. We've been saying that for the last 7+ years. Had you taken that on board as a recommendation, coming from a good place in the opposition, the alternative government in waiting, how many lives may have been saved? But you rubbish down everything we say. That is your position. And then he turns around and he's urging Jacob to ensure that questionable officers who collaborate with the criminal elements don't remain in the service. He said that there are limited interventions that the government can make because the COP is independent. The COP is independent. So he threw a little blame on Jacobs too. And then he goes to say, so once we give him money from the treasury, what happens to that money is entirely up to the COP. This is the same man that stood up in the parliament and said, I pay the police their salary. So that is my job done with crime. He repeats it now. And that is the scant courtesy that he treats you. And then the most laughable part about everything is that he comes to say, with respect to the appointment of a police service commission, the cabinet has no role. The president does it after consultation with the prime minister. This is the same man that had the gall and the temerity to run down president's house and interfere with a list that was supposed to go to the president with respect to picking a police commissioner. And for the first time in the history of this country, we were left without a titular head of the police service within Trinidad and Tobago. That is your prime minister, not mine. If after all of that, you do not recognize that to this man's core, there's nothing true, nothing sacred, that he is not about democracy and transparency and accountability, I don't know what else to tell you. You will have one job eventually. Because you see, they don't want to call local government elections. Well, don't worry, the UNC go ensure that they call the local government elections. As I said before, we are bright people and bright lawyers. Right? When that time comes, and you are called upon to vote, as MP Mohit would have indicated to you, get out there and do so. If you want a future, I always used to say it before, for your children, but the way in which things are going in this country, I have to say it for yourselves. And if you want to believe that Trinidad and Tobago can in fact be saved, it is by restoring one party under one leader that will give you transparency, accountability, and good governance under Mrs. Kamla Persad-Bissessar through the vehicle United National Congress. I thank you very much.
Your eyes are opening. Welcome to the revolution.
People crying out for justice. Some of them crying out for freedom.
Want freedom.
Everybody crying out for democracy.
Indeed, ladies and gentlemen, we are living in a failed state under this PNM-led government. You heard it from Mr. Sean Sobers. Thank you very much, Mr. Sobers. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is a UNC powerhouse. He is fearless, outspoken, and he serves as a central regional coordinator under the United National Congress Executive. He has a bachelor's degree in government with a minor degree in international relations, a diploma in law, and a postgraduate diploma in communications. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Member of Parliament for Princestown, MP Barry Padarath.
Now it's time to take a stand, yeah.
Come on! Cause this is the revolution, the people's revolution. This is the revolution. I wanna hear everybody sing.
Political Leader of the United National Congress, the Honorable Kamala Persad-Bissessar, the best Prime Minister Trinidad and Tobago has ever seen. Colleagues from both the lower and upper houses of Parliament, brothers and sisters from the local government fraternity, brothers and sisters, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, a pleasant good evening. I stand here immensely proud coming after the presentation made by my brother Sean Sobers. And I just commented to him that he has evolved so much as a platform speaker that now he's one of our strongest speakers, both inside and outside of the Houses of Parliament. Yesterday, Trinidad and Tobago joined the international community in recognizing World Children's Day 2022. But while many other countries that found joy in the work they have been doing to protect and advance the rights of children, we in Trinidad and Tobago was once more faced with the brutal, savage, and barbaric reality of thousands of cases of abuse against our nation's children. The father of soca and prolific artist, the late Ras Shorty I once sang, "Watch out, my children, it have a man with a bag of white powder, who don't want to powder your face, but to bring shame and disgrace to the human race." Today, as our nation's children face being economically disadvantaged, criminally traumatized, and socially impoverished, Ras Shorty I's words is more relevant than ever as our nation grapples with a drug trade that fuels the murder and bloodshed of our sons and daughters. Brothers and sisters, in 2022, the reality that confronts us is not only the man with a bag of white powder, but the unfit, corrupt, blind, red and ready miscreants who have played active roles in the cover-up of abuse against our nation's children and who continue to feed the gangs through state contracts. As if the Justice Judith Jones report never existed, with daily publications of front pages bemoaning the abuse of children, the editors, columnists, PNM apologists, and others have moved on to the next hot topic. The revelation of over 400 cases of abuse being reported to the Children's Authority every month. It didn't find its way on the front page of yesterday's newspaper. It found itself hidden on page 8, somewhere thereabout. No one is calling out the government for neglect, hypocrisy, and lack of political will to effectively address this issue other than Kamala Persad-Bissessar and the United National Congress. Tonight, we in the UNC, we are calling on the pedophile national movement to set aside your personal interest in this matter. We are calling for you to explain why after 7 years, going on 8, that over 15 children's homes are still unlicensed, as admitted by Minister Ayanna Webster Roy in Parliament a few weeks ago. The pedophile national movement must set above their personal interest in child abuse and tell the country why several critical pieces of legislation dealing with the administration, evaluation, monitoring, and protecting of children have yet to be proclaimed. They have been in office for 7 going on 8 years, and they have passed all manner of legislation, but nothing as it relates to the protection of our nation's children. The People's National Movement, or the pedophile national movement, must set aside or declare their personal interest and indicate why every year the Children's Authority remains understaffed and under-resourced. At the Standing Finance Committee, I revealed that the Children's Authority staff, the staff inside of the Children's Authority, gave me the budget that they requested in terms of how much was needed to deal with the matters affecting the Children's Authority in the year 2022-2023. They reached out to me saying they wrote to the minister requesting a budget of 150 million to deal with the matters before the authority. The minister said when I asked, she said they could not give or they could not get everything they wanted. That was her response to the Children's Authority. Children have been raped. Children have been murdered. Children have been violated. And this government demonstrates through their words and their deeds that they do not care, and they are still sitting in the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago today. We have turned into a sick, sadistic society if the most vulnerable in our land is treated like that by a prime minister and a government. Brothers and sisters, I understand that many children in the past 2 years in particular have been rejected by the Children's Life Fund as part of the government's cost-cutting measures. This has been done under the disguise of children with conditions such as beta thalassemia, rare blood conditions, etc., as not qualifying to be considered as immediately life-threatening. Tonight, the UNC calls for the Children's Life Fund legislation to be reviewed immediately. I was in the parliament when 4 years ago, our political leader, Mrs. Kamla Persad-Bissessar, she stood and she told them, she said the opposition was prepared to give our support for you to review that legislation to allow a greater number of children to benefit from the Children's Life Fund. She said, why don't you give tax breaks for businesses who can contribute? She said, why don't you establish a parliamentary oversight committee so we can determine what was the clogs in the system? Tonight we are asking what became of the Commission on Children that was established under the People's Partnership Government. We ask, where is the task force that was meant to administer and administrate the Couva Children's Hospital? The plan for that hospital, and Dr. Bodo is here, Dr. Bodo will tell you, the plan for that hospital was to ensure that pediatric medicine and specialty surgeries would have been offered here by training doctors coming out of Malaysia, training the Trinbagonian doctors, through the doctors from Malaysia and other areas that specialized in pediatric care, to operationalize that hospital so that both in Trinidad and Tobago and in the wider CARICOM region, we could have brought in those children who need that specialty care to come to the Couva Children's Hospital. Sean told you this evening how the national security system in this country has collapsed. We have seen over the past few months with the information that is now in the public domain that our children through health care, through social services, are at their wits' end. Why? Because this government does not have the political will to remove rapists and predators from within these homes. And that is why we call them the people's, not the people's, the pedophile national movement. We know who you are. We know you for who and what you are. And that is why you refuse to protect our nation's children. Brothers and sisters, this evening, I understand why so little is being done to protect the people of Trinidad and Tobago. You see, these ministers seem to be so preoccupied, but I want to ask a particular minister this evening. You see, while that minister is fostering bundles of minutes on their smartphone, whether or not that minister who is in charge of young people to give them a greater opportunity, those people who are in those children's homes, those young ones, whether the ministers are too busy fostering these bundles because they are building palatial mansions for colleagues in St. Anne's. I want to ask whether or not these ministers are too preoccupied because their name is jumping up in a murder-suicide right here in San Fernando. Deputy Leader John, like I hear she get the same Zeppo that I got. But they say mouth open and story jump out. And there's more to come on that. Because there's a minister who likes to pride themselves on being on the job and among the people. Tonight I want to tell that minister, you can run, but you cannot hide. You can run, but you cannot hide. More is to come on that. Tonight I want to focus a bit on what has been happening in the water sector in our country. We have seen the entire collapse of the water sector. While many of you are fully aware that your taps are dry, despite assurances of a scheduled water supply, WASA's own documents on quality assurance shows that 70% of the country who is on a scheduled water supply does not receive that scheduled supply of water. The minister, Marvyn Gonsalves, a few days ago, he jumped out of his whole self to say, well, we are going to establish these water modulated treatment plants. When Mrs. Bisessa told you that 5,000 employees were going home over the course of the next 2-3 years in WASA, what was also contained in that document was that these water modulated treatment plants will be built in this country, but it will now fall under its own board under the Ministry of Public Utilities. The commissioners will be hand-selected for this new company by the Cabinet of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. But tonight I want to ask Minister Marvyn Gonsalves a question. You see, you've cut WASA in 2021-22 financial year by 350 million. This budget gone, you have cut WASA by 250 million in the area of materials and supplies, etc. When we saw those massive floods and the pipelines collapsed right here in the Mosquito Creek, or as Dr. Munilal tells us, in Mosquito Crack. When those pipelines collapsed there and the pipelines in Caparo collapsed, the pipelines in Grandi collapsed, it was because of aging infrastructure that needed to be addressed. You don't wait for rainy season to come to go and inspect and monitor to make sure these corroded, dilapidated stations are not fit and are not in order. You do that in the dry season. But like everything else, they put the cart before the horse. And what we saw happen with these massive floods is a direct result of poor planning and incompetence by this People's National Movement administration. But then they come to tell you that the panacea to the problem is these water modulated treatment plants. Well, you hear a lie? That is a lie. You see, they're busy, as Deputy Leader John once told us. That cabinet is like a revolving door. You make one deal, a minister come out, a next one walk in, they make a next deal, another one come out. It's about friends, financiers, and family. And I want to warn Trinidad and Tobago tonight. When Marvyn Gonsalves tells you that there are 10 water modulated treatment plants to come in this country, we must ask him, where the money coming from? You see in the document that Mrs. Pasabi says held up in the parliament, outlining that WASA workers were to go home. In that same document, what it says is that these water-modulated treatment plants will be administered by a hand-selected board. They will determine who's sitting on that board. They will determine who gets in contracts. But tonight, I want to ask the minister, where is the capital investment coming from? You see the document Mrs. Preside says I held up coming from WASA. What it said is that any capital investment to be done inside of WASA will be paid from the increased water rates that are to come in 2023. So they are picking your pockets to establish these water-modulated treatment plants to fill their own pockets. That is the bottom line. That is the bottom line of what is happening in the water sector of Trinidad and Tobago. Brothers and sisters, this evening, many of us, we were horrified to have listened to those tapes coming out of the Commission of Inquiry into Paria. And a few minutes ago, an article came out, and one of the headlines said, the diver's last words that was captured on audio, and I quote, God will save us. Trinidad and Tobago, our circumstance is very different from those who perished tragically in that pipeline. And while they said God will save us, I say to you, we are in different circumstances because we have life, we have breath, we can do something. God helps those who help themselves. Get up, stand up, help yourself, fight for your country. You know, I heard a few weeks ago one minister introducing the Prime Minister, and she spoke glowingly and used very religious, sanctimonious, godly words to describe the Prime Minister. I want to say to that minister tonight, some call her Sindura, I want to tell that minister tonight, stop prostituting religion for position and minister work. Stop prostituting religion for position and minister work. Because you see, while those divers died at the hands of your government, while they died at the hands of your government, they said in their dying words, God will save us. To the people of Trinidad and Tobago, I say, get up, stand up, and God helps those who help themselves. Time to help yourself.
People, come on, people.
Tables are turning, your eyes are opening. Welcome to the revolution.
People crying out for justice.
Some of them crying out for freedom.
Want freedom.
Everybody crying out for democracy.
God help those who help themselves. As our deputy political leader does say, elections have consequences. And as MP Padarath just told us about the water crisis in our country, we in Sangre Grande continue to endure these issues in Sangre Grande. But mind you, from 2010 to 2015, this was not a problem in Sangre Grande. So my friends and family, we must remain conscious of what we're doing, and sometimes we stand to take blame for ourselves because elections have consequences. Thank you, MP Barry Padarath. Our next speaker is a dedicated and determined parliamentarian and a stalwart of the labor movement. He continues to fight for the people of Couva South as they rally for good governance. A soldier in the struggle for peace, bread, and justice. Please welcome the MP for Couva South, Mr. R Indarsingh.
Now it's time to take a stand, yeah.
Come on! Cause this is the revolution, the people's revolution. This is the revolution. I wanna hear everybody sing.
Thank you very much, Councillor Calvin Sicharan, co-chair of tonight's Monday night virtual platform, political leader of the United National Congress, the Honorable Kamla Persad Bissessa, who led a government that ensured that there was people-centered development and improved the standard of living of every citizen of Trinidad and Tobago for 5 years. My brothers and sisters of the United National Congress on all or at all levels of our great party, those of you who are locked on the respective social media platforms, I want to tell you here tonight that in 7+ years, Trinidad and Tobago has collapsed under Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley and the PNM. They have destroyed Trinidad and Tobago. There is a crisis of leadership in this country. And where we are today, there is no hope for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And for the last 7 years plus, the Prime Minister, we know that he has been disrespectful, the fella classless, he vulgar, he disrespectful to every woman in Trinidad and Tobago, and he has been talking utter nonsense and stupidity. And only yesterday, that stupidity and that low-level thinking continued. And it shows and it demonstrated for me how disconnected, how contemptuous, how arrogant they continue to be to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. We saw during the budget debate, the MP for Lopino Bonaire West told you that to deal with the high cost of living, you must no longer eat macaroni pie and ham. Then the MP for Port of Spain South, Keith Scotland, told you to deal with high food prices and the increase in fuel costs, that you must purchase a bicycle to ride to school, to go to work, and also you must purchase a coal pot to deal with the escalation in cost of living. And then Roaming Shamfa told you that you must continue to sacrifice, my brothers and sisters. Only yesterday, the Prime Minister went down to some meeting in San Fernando seeking to campaign to become the political leader of the party again. And he told you that roadworks when rain stops. So I want to ask Rowley tonight, the Prime Minister, has rain been falling for the last 7+ years? And that is why there has been a catastrophic collapse of the infrastructure throughout the length and breadth of Trinidad and Tobago. Listen to Rowley, and I'm quoting from an article written by Suan Wewo. When the rain stops, citizens should expect to see massive roadworks taking place throughout the country. As soon as the rain stops falling, you will see significant activity with respect to road reinstatement, he said. And listen to this gentleman. Listen to his disconnect. Listen to his nonsensical words. Dr. Rowley said, and I quote, "There are people who in the dry season, in South in particular," listen to him, in South in particular, they go and build all about, where in the rainy season, those are the areas where there is overflow is going to go. And we have not abandoned these situations. I want to tell Rowley tonight that there have been flooding in Diego Martin West. There is flooding in Diego Martin Central. There is flooding in Diego Martin Northeast. There is infrastructural collapse and flooding in Port of Spain South, Lavantil West, Lopino Bonnet West, Aruca Maloney, and in all the constituencies controlled to by the United National Congress. That is the level of disconnect. The fella don't even know that there is flooding in the constituency that he has led for the last 30 years in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. But I want you to listen more, importantly, Trinidad and Tobago, because in between 2016 and going into 2023, the Ministry of Works has spent $23.876 billion as it relates to allocations, budget after budget. Rohan Sinanan and Keith Rowley tell us where the money gone and why has the infrastructure collapsed throughout the length and breadth of Trinidad and Tobago. And in addition to $23.876 billion being spent by the Ministry of Works and Transport, hear this. The government of Trinidad and Tobago borrowed $160 million to deal with extensive financing to deal with drainage works in Port of Spain, Caroni, Caparo, South Oropouche, and North Oropouche. And I want to quote also that on the 27th of July 2021, the Latin American Bank for Development, this bank that is referred to as CAF, lent Trinidad and Tobago $175 million to modernize the transportation infrastructure. And on the 14th of August 2019, I'm quoting from the Latin American Development Bank again. They lent Trinidad and Tobago US $200 million for works to be carried out in terms of comprehensive development, maintenance, and management and planning to be carried out by the Ministry of Works and Transport. And listen again, in March of 2020, Trinidad and Tobago received a grant of $3.37 million towards the creation of a flood management master plan. And in addition to this, over the last 7 years, $15.45 billion have been spent by the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government. So why, after all this, the infrastructure continues to collapse on the Mosquito Creek portion of the highway to Point 14? Why the roof in the Red House now has collapsed after $441 million was spent on the Red House refurbishment? And the Prime Minister told us that it was monies well spent, and Camille Robinson rages all over the Parliament saying that we must be thankful for shoddy work. That is what she was telling Trinidad and Tobago, my brothers and sisters. And tonight, I want to ask Rohan Sinanan, what is the real agenda in terms of the delivery of goods and services to the taxpaying public of Trinidad and Tobago? Why has there been this collapse? Why has there been this substandard work and shoddy work that taxpayers are spending money year after year, and we cannot get our roads, our bridges, our drainage, our sluice gates right throughout the length and breadth of Trinidad and Tobago? And I want you to listen to Rohan Sinanan tonight before I go on. And I call upon you to play that clip and listen to Rohan Sinanan in Sandy Grande.
By the way, see that box in front of you there? That is what $1 million look like if you put it in a carrot case. That is $1 million. It pulls a carrot case, $1 million. On that bridge, we saved $2 million. So on that bridge, what is $2 million there for? On that bridge alone, we saved $2 million. That amount of money, if you pile it up in $100 bills, right? And that $2 million, they're complaining about we paving road all over the place in Grande. That $2 million went to pave the road. That $2 million, right?
You see why Rohan Sinanan know how many $100 does fit in a carrot case. But I want to ask Rohan Sinanan tonight, what is his real agenda? Is the government encouraging contractors to do shoddy work and substandard work? Are they asking because I want to know? One of their own told us, Karen Nunes Teixeira told us that up till today it has cost $50 million to refurbish Balize House as it stands. And will it cost $100 million to refurbish Balize House? We want to know. And Rohan Sinanan knows how much money does fit in a carrot box. And tonight I want to ask him, because he said that Balize House is being refurbished because of the goodwill of donors. How many donors and how many carrot cases have gone to Balize House? Karen Nunes Teixeira told us of the cost. I did not come up with that cost here tonight. But more importantly, are contractors being encouraged to do shoddy work? And are they being called upon to make donations to Balize House in terms of the refurbishment? And tonight, again, I seize the opportunity. Acting Commissioner of Police, you must display the testicular fortitude that is needed in the fight against white-collar crime. And we call upon you to put caution tape, cordon off Balize House and have it declared a crime scene and launch an immediate investigation and follow the money as it relates to how many donations have gone into Balize House by brothers and sisters. And more importantly too, it have an next one who now come back on the scene in recent times. Jennifer Schillingberger Batiste Primus. She suddenly she's suddenly back on the scene. She fighting, contesting the post of Labor Relations Officer in the internal elections. And she was fired by Rowley, you know, rejected by Rowley, rejected by the PNM, and she's suddenly back on the scene. And you know what she's seeking? Redemption for the PNM and Rowley and their incompetence and their sins for the last 7 years. She said that the PNM must be forgiven. I want to tell you here tonight that there must be no redemption for the PNM. They must be rejected throughout the length and breadth of Trinidad and Tobago, my brothers and sisters. And why she want forgiveness for the PNM? They have taken away your right to send a message to the PNM in terms of postponing the general elections. They have gone against the rule of law and the will of the people. Must we forgive the PNM for that? Tonight, today, we heard of that tape that was played in the Commission of Inquiry. We heard the anguish, we heard the cries, we heard the pain and suffering of these 4 divers who died and who languished for 4 days and more in the pipeline, my brothers and sisters at Paria. Jennifer Baptiste Primus want us to forgive the PNM when we know that the inaction of Paria that led to the death of these divers. Must we cover up the inaction and the incompetence of the Newman George-led board, my brothers and sisters? Must we forgive the PNM for collapsing, or must we forgive the Prime Minister for interrupting and intercepting the merit list and leading to the collapse of the Police Service Commission? Therefore, my brothers and sisters, I want to tell you here tonight that the PNM and Rowley have sinned for the last 7 years, and the wages of sin is political debt. And whenever the elections are called, my brothers and sisters, the solution to govern Trinidad and Tobago and to restore Trinidad and Tobago to good governance is the leadership of Kamla Persad-Bissessar and the United National Congress. Long live our party, long live our political leader, and long live the rank and file. Long live the rank and file, my brothers and sisters. But before I leave this platform here tonight, I want to seize the opportunity and continue the trend, continue the trajectory, and tell you why we must not forgive them and why the wages of political sin must be political debt whenever it is called, my brothers and sisters. Because you see, they want us to forgive them for Nelson Gate. We do not know how much it will cost the taxpayers of Trinidad and Tobago, but they want us to forget that over $150 million and counting of taxpayers' money have been utilized for the biggest political persecution and conspiracy since our political independence. Fabricated testimony, collusion, and perversion of the course of justice against a former UNC Attorney General and a UNC Senator, my brothers and sisters. Should we forgive the PNM for email gate, in which they accused our own political leader and senior former cabinet ministers of conspiracy to murder a journalist, which turned out to be the biggest political lie in the political history of Trinidad and Tobago? My brothers and sisters, must we forgive the PNM for pursuing policies which have resulted in job losses in excess of 150,000 persons being put on the breadline over the last 7 years? Must we forgive the PNM for shutting down Petrotrin and telling you that they will ensure that the people of Trinidad and Tobago, through patriotic energies, own the refinery once again? We must never forget the PNM, because the Point-a-Pierre refinery today has been reduced to scrap iron, my brothers and sisters. Tonight I ask you, for the last 7+ years, 3,571 persons have been murdered in Trinidad and Tobago over the last 7+ years. We are on course for a national record in terms of how many persons will be killed in a year. Must we forgive Rowley Hines and Stuart Young for their incompetence. My brothers and sisters, must we forgive Rowley and his incompetent bunch for their continued squandermania? A Prime Minister's residence, the cost of the Prime Minister's residence in Tobago moved from 17 million to 63 million, and who knows how much they will ask for in the next fiscal year. Must we forgive Rowley and the PNM for their incompetence and squandermania, my brothers and sisters? My brothers and sisters, should we forgive Rowley, Rohan Sinanan, and the cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago for the collapse of bridges in Carolina, in Golden Grove, in Rupsing Road, in the Randy Carter Bridge in Felicity, the Liburn Bridge in Gasparillo, the Mosquito Crack? My brothers and sisters, the total collapse of infrastructure in Trinidad and Tobago. Should we forgive Rowley and the PNM, my brothers and sisters? My brothers and sisters, they want you to forget. They want you to forget that it was the PNM, without any scientific evidence, took the decision to ban open-air cremations in Trinidad and Tobago, which affected not only the Hindu community, but other religious denominations in Trinidad and Tobago. And 4,000 persons died because of the mismanagement of the COVID-19 pandemic. And that is why I tell you tonight, we must never forgive Rowley and the PNM. Whenever the elections are called, the wages of political sin must be the political death of Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley and the People's National Movement as we return Kamla Persad Bisasa and the United National Congress to restoring Trinidad and Tobago. Long live our political leader. Long live the United National Congress. I thank you.
If you cut me, you go see blood. And if you squeeze me, you go feel the love. We are one people under the sun, one nation under the law. So who feel the black? Who feel the black? Who feel the white? Who feel the white? I don't know. But it's set till tomorrow night. Who feel the wrong? Who feel the wrong? Who feel the right? Who feel the right? Come and go. And all who feel the too bright, let me jump up. Let me wind up. Party non-stop. Ramaje bingo leke kete, we come to play mass. Every creed and class, don't let nothing pass. Like a ready TV, all the love inside away.
First woman Prime Minister, first woman Attorney General, first woman to chair the Commonwealth of 54 nations, first woman opposition leader. Welcome KPB Plus, solid everywhere.
Like a ready TV, all the love inside away.
Thank you very much. Good evening, UNC. Well, we always knew our MP Indarsingh was a good batsman. So tonight I said talk a little longer because I was getting some more information, which I'll share with you in a short while, with respect to our case with the postponement of local government. So can I say good evening, everyone, UNC family? Thank you very much. Let us thank our chairpersons here, Councillor Rafi Mohammed and Councillor Calvin Sicharan, coming from different parts of Trinidad, Calvin from the Grandi Corporation and Rafi from Princestown. So please welcome and thank them very much. And to all the heated, powerful speakers tonight, MP Vandana, Senator Sean Sobers. I saw Sean Sobers took over the news over the weekend. Thank you so much. MP Peppermouth Padarath, and of course MP Indarsingh, and all of you are here tonight. Those hooked on, good evening once again. And I will not be long tonight. You know why? because I think the powerful lineup before me have done so well. Just sharing some information with you, first of all, to deal with party matters. We call these house matters. So I want to invite you and everyone in the UNC to our National Congress on Sunday, December 4th, Coover South Hall from 2:30 p.m. Will you be there? Yes, we look forward to seeing you. I want to advise you that nominations for the Youth Arm elections will be reopened from Wednesday, 23rd November, and close on 16th December 2022 at 4 p.m. You could get forms here. So the Youth Arm elections, some persons have crossed the age. We had opened the elections, and since then they've passed the age for the youth. So Youth Arm nominations are open from Wednesday and will close Friday, December 16th at 4 p.m. Get your forms and get involved, young people. Both the Youth Arm and Women's Arm elections will be held on Sunday, 15th January 2023. So if we completed the constituencies, we completed the NATEX, and now we will do these two arms of the party. So I encourage everyone, let's get involved and let's put a full party structure in place. Now I want to talk a little about crime. I know it's worrying everyone, and I received several messages on my WhatsApp. And in those messages, I'm being told that the PNM, operators of the PNM, the government, that they've called in gang leaders. And they're offering contracts to these gang leaders to have a ceasefire because they want to end the crime. But that's not the way to end crime. You don't reward criminals. That is not the way. So I call on government to tell us if it's true. And we will file, yes, Mr. Manning had done it, you're right. We will file freedom of information questions, of course, to find out who they have given these contracts to. Now, I find that very, very disturbing. Dr. Boda, I'm sure, as a law-abiding citizens, and everyone, all our citizens, this is very, very disturbing. That they're offering contracts to... Kenwin, don't go down that road. Kelvin said better he try to become one of these leaders. Don't. You remain a local government leader, okay, in your Grandy Corporation. So I want to share that with you. And then now I'm seeing a kind of perversion of the course of justice in a different way. As you know, we've approached the High Court, and I told you before, this is where you go to resolve disputes, not with the gun and the sword and whatever. You go to the courts where we have differences in law. And having filed that matter by Mr. Anand Ramlogan, the court has set some very strange dates, saying they will hear this matter next year in January. So our lawyers, Anand Ramlogan and others, they have filed today. Today, they have filed another matter in the court against the government about these elections and seeking an injunction to prevent officers from continuing to act as councillors and aldermen after the 3rd of December, because you know it, councillors are here tonight, you know it. It means your council expires on the 3rd of December. The term ends, and therefore we filed an injunction. We will take this matter up, refuse it, up to the Court of Appeal, and guess where? To the Privy Council. So let's thank our lawyers to fast-track this matter, because you can't fix this for January next year, because then it will become, in law they say, ocious, redundant, waste of time, academic. So you have to go now, before the term expires, and to deal with the calling of these elections. Whichever way it goes, we have to stand up for democracy. Do you agree? We have to stand up for the rule of law. So we've applied for what is known as interim relief under Section 18 of the Judicial Review Act, an order that this application matter be deemed fit for urgent and expedited hearing. An interim injunction restraining all persons presently holding office as councillors and aldermen, having been duly elected by the local government elections held on 2nd December 2019, pending the determination of this matter. So you will not hold your offices, and I'm advising our councillors, you don't have to panic. You'll have your chance again, but we must always abide by the rule of law. Further, and/or alternative case management directions ordered by the court on 18th November be varied to ensure that the court delivers its ruling on or before the 3rd December 2022. An order that costs and so on be fixed, and such other orders. So this is a matter filed today. Anand Ramblogan and lawyers together with him, let's thank them very much as we stand and fight for justice and democracy. So I thought I'd share that with you because I was very disturbed on Friday when I got the news at the hearing. They've fixed the hearing now for when? January. So whatever decision the court makes in January becomes, as I say, Osho's redundant waste of time. Because it would mean that the elections will not be called as should be called in law, which is on or before 3rd of March 2022. They want to push you now down to 2023. And they want to call that democracy. So we'll fight them in the courts. Victor Roberts will fight them on the streets, inside the parliament, outside the parliament, to have all of us join together. So I share that with you. And I saw an article recently about community policing. So they're talking about fighting crime, but it was under Mr. Pandey that we put this fully into effect. And under my government, we continued. But what have they done? They've killed it. And they want to know why things are going wrong, because they don't just wait after the crime has been committed. Fighting crime has to be a holistic, Tanku, you know it, a holistic fight. So you have to fight it before, during, and after. But the before, we've lost all the preventive methods. And their answer, if I'm correct, and if the information I got is correct, is to do what? Offer the gang leaders contracts. Contracts. And that's, you're correct, the procurement law. We saw the regulator in the parliament recently talking about that. So MP Indarsingh talked about Balaji House. I don't need to speak of that. Barry talked about children. Children. And it's a sad time we are facing for children in this country. For the women. Where's the pepper spray, by the way? Every week we ask about this pepper spray. You promised it so many years, but we will fight them on every front. So they have no plan for the economy. World Children's Day, Barry did a good job on sharing with you some of our plans to amend the law so more children will have access to the Children's Life Fund. Yes, you agree with that? Yes, yes. And don't cry crocodile tears, you know. They closed down the gate, the laptop, everything to help children in this country. They have shut down. You know, I called several times ago, several moons ago, for the migrant children to be given access to education. I saw the Express editorial is now saying the same thing. I thank you, Express. I thank you. We have been calling because they're children. And tonight again, I renew that call for migrant children to have the opportunity for education. Do you agree? Yes, we must. We have to agree. So friends, that's my short comments tonight. We shall meet at 00. You know who I'll ask to come and speak with me tonight? Mr. Taxi himself. Taxi, come and give us a few minutes.
Good night, brothers and sisters. Welcome to the United National Congress Monday Night Forum. And I'm very happy to join with my political leader and the future Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. I just want to say the PNM is a total failure. Total failure.
And the only way for we to go under the leadership of Kamla Persad Bissessa to be the Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Where there is unity, there is strength.
Thank you very much. And I see MP Charles is here. Can we get a few words, please, MP?
I'm proud this evening to stand next to my political leader, next Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. And I join with all the other speakers in telling Dr. Rowley, depart from your wicked ways, repent and seek redemption. But ladies and gentlemen, there is no redemption for the PNM. We must vote them out and put this beautiful lady as our next leader and Prime Minister. So, good night, everybody. Want to see you at the Congress?
4th.
On the 4th? Come out in your numbers. Let us show the PNM the power that this lady has behind her. And we will rescue Trinidad and Tobago from the evil and despicable situation in which it is. Thank you very much.
I now call on Dr. Bodo. You just had a delivery?
That's correct. So good night, UNC family. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be standing to the next Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. And I'm sure that you all agree we can't wait until 2025. The country has collapsed under this PNM government. And of course, it is a dire situation. This is a situation that requires urgent surgery, leader of the opposition. So my brothers and sisters, we have a strong battle ahead of us. I urge all of us to continue to be strong, to remain focused. And again, I would say that our Congress on the 4th of December is a very important event for us, and to send a signal of the strength and the growing strength of our party under our leader, Kamla Persad Bissessa. So it's going to be difficult times ahead, but I feel very certain, very sure that the leader who is standing next to me, will take us through these troubled times. And once again, bring Trinidad and Tobago to the country that it should be. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I call upon Michelle Benjamin, MP, please.
Good night to my honorable political leader. Good night to my UNC family present here tonight and those locked on all the virtual platform. I join my colleague. It is a pleasure to be standing next to the next Prime Minister. And I don't say that with unbelieving. Trinidad and Tobago know that the way forward, the way out of this hell, because we spoke about political suicide, we spoke about political sin, and the PNM has committed a crime. Right now, they are being very vindictive. They are victimizing us. They are making us feel that we don't belong in a nation that we built. So we have to get rid of them. And the only person that can do that is this honorable lady, this strong fighter that is fighting to reestablish our democracy, that is fighting for us to belong in a nation that we built. She is fighting for the future of our children. She is fighting for the future of the single mothers. When she was there, we had the baby grant. I didn't hear anybody mention that, but I sit in a constituency that I could tell you it is needed today, especially as my colleague, Ms. Mohit, would have spoken about the vulnerable in our society. Let us return the Honorable Kamla Persad Bissessa. I am telling you, she's the way forward. I endorse my honorable political leader. I stand with her in this fight, and I know we will win. When I call elections tomorrow, we are ready. Call the elections. Don't run. Don't postpone. Don't hide behind the courts to delay the process for you to get time to pave roads. We don't want paved roads. We don't want hampers. We want a woman that created jobs. So we are standing strong behind her. And I'm honored. Honorable Political Leader, I stand with you.
Thank you, MP. I now call on Councillor Raquel Ghani, please.
Good evening to my political...
Caught you by surprise, but always ready.
I was just getting very ready. Our Honorable Leader, thank you so much. You see, our leader has them on the run. Are they on the run? Until now, they're begging for mercy. They say, mercy, please. Somebody help me. They're begging for mercy. But what they have to do, all those people who died needlessly from COVID, over 4,000, let them go and ask for forgiveness from them. All the children who had no devices, and today we are suffering because of that, and they are suffering, let them go and ask them for mercy. The 6,000 small businesses that closed down during COVID, go and ask for forgiveness there. You know, Madam Priscilla Ramcharter, who died because the car hit a pothole, she was going out with her family. Go and ask her and her family, the young family she has left behind, go and ask for forgiveness. And tonight, MP Padarath spoke about the last words from the divers. God will help us. They gave up. They said, God will help us. And I want to reiterate, Trinidad and Tobago, God has turned his face from us. It's the only reason we have Rowley here. God gone and leave Rowley. So we have to stand up and stand with the political leader of the United National Congress. Stand with her. Stand in the gap with her. Right? Because see, they're abusing the Bible. But we know who God bless, no man curse. And one day, Kamla Persad Bissessa will be the Prime Minister of this country again. And only then, she may ask for forgiveness, but I cannot forgive the people, Rowley and the People's National Movement. We should never, ever forgive them. I thank you.
MP Ratiram, please.
Thank you very much, Honorable Political Leader, and the best Prime Minister that we have had in Trinidad and Tobago, Honorable Kamla Persad Bissessa. My brothers and sisters, good night to each and every one of you. It is truly an honor and a privilege to stand next to the greatest woman that has served this country and has served this country with a distinction, brothers and sisters. During our leader term as Prime Minister, we saw development like we have never seen across the length and breadth of Trinidad and Tobago. We see over 100 schools being constructed. We see hospitals being constructed. We see roads being developed. And we see the agriculture sector being given the respect and the care that it deserves. We see the houses, the household receiving support, as MP Michelle Benjamin indicated, with things like the baby grants. And what we saw, brothers and sisters, is the policy by this honorable leader is a policy that benefited all the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago when she removed the VAT on 7,000 food items that benefited all. What we are seeing today, brothers and sisters, a total collapse of this government in every sector of society. They are clueless. They have lost touch with the people and the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. We see abandonment of the agriculture sector and the fishing sector, brothers and sisters. We see the failure of this government to clean our water courses and our rivers, causing mass flooding across the length and breadth of the country. And just tonight, again, the constituencies of Kufa North is under pressure. So, brothers and sisters, there is a saying that at the end of every dark cloud, there is a silver lining. And I am honored and privileged and proud to stand next to that silver lining of Trinidad and Tobago, who will lead us out of darkness into the light. The Honorable Kamla Persad Bissessa, our next Prime Minister. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, MP. Can I call Councillor Chris Hussein. And I want to share a little story, and I'm so proud of Chris. Chris is our councillor in the Princeton Corporation, and he took some of these years to better himself. I am proud to announce that Chris has qualified to be a lawyer, and I'm so proud of him.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed a deep honor and privilege to stand next to the strongest woman this country has ever seen, next to the best Prime Minister our country has ever had, next to a lady who has done so much for young people in this country, and I am proud to be one of them. I am standing here today not just as a councillor, not just as a UNC representative, not just as a supporter of the United National Congress next to the political leader, but I am standing next to my mentor, and I am standing next to my inspiration, not just in politics, but also in law. I am so privileged and I am so grateful to have had the opportunity for almost 6 years to serve in local government. It has been 6 of the most difficult, but 6 of the most rewarding years of my young life, and I thank Kamla Persad-Bissessar for that opportunity. Today, this evening, I want to call on you to stand strong with our party. Stand strong and stand together, because together we will remove the People's National Movement and we will take back reins of governance of Trinidad and Tobago. I thank you all very much, and God bless.
Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you. I want to call our brother Victor Roberts. I was going to share this with you, but let Victor tell you how we can continue this fight against the wicked PNM. Victor, our brother, welcome him, please.
Blessed good night to all. So what we would do is to continue the fight while the leader and the members of parliament, the senators, continue the fight inside the parliament. It is our job to continue the fight outside of the parliament. And therefore, on the 10th of December, we are going to mobilize over 30,000 individuals in this country to let Keith Rowley and the PNM know that we have had enough of their misbehavior in public office, their misrepresentation of the truth, their interference in relation to our democracy, and therefore we are going to stand to fight the battle together. We are going to fight against the murder rate. We are going to fight against food prices. We are going to fight against the fuel increase. We are going to fight against the unemployment. We are going to fight against the worst government ever. We are going to fight about the worst infrastructure. We are going to fight, ladies and gentlemen, for the interference of our democracy by this dictatorial government under the leadership of Christopher Rowley, and we are going to install the onlyest individual who have demonstrated their love for Trinidad and Tobago, for single mothers, for single fathers, for the school children, and every walks of life. We would ensure that the Honorable Kamla Persad-Bissessar returns to the chair of the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. I thank you, Honorable Leader.
Thank you very much, Victor. Thank you. I call MP Khadija Amin, please.
Thank you very much, distinguished political leader and the best Prime Minister Trinidad and Tobago ever saw. Tonight, I want to take this opportunity to thank Kamla Persad-Bissessar for 2 things. One is the legal challenge for the PNM extending, well, they didn't extend the term, they postponed the election because they're frightened. I want to thank this political leader for standing up against the PNM and bringing action to defend democracy in Trinidad and Tobago. I also want to thank this political leader who, as Prime Minister, set an example for what should be done in terms of real representation in local government. The PNM cannot touch you with a 10-foot rod. They cannot step in your shoes, and they are afraid to face the polls and call local elections
because of the good representation of the United National Congress under your leadership. So I thank you.
Thank you, Khadija. Thank you so much. And we have a very big mouth councillor, Councillor Mohit. Karen spoke last week.
Honorable Political Leader, Senior Council, Members of Parliament, Councillors, Party stalwarts, ladies and gentlemen on the live stream, good night, assalamu alaikum and sitaram. I am inviting, thank you Political Leader, I am making a special invitation to those burgesses of Debe East, Esperance. Please come out. All roads will lead to the United National Congress December 4th, where we will stand with our political leader, a great leader for all of TNT. Please rise and give her a standing round of applause tonight and the energy of the great people of the UNC. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I call on MP Dave Tanku, please.
Thank you very much, Political Leader of the United National Congress, my colleagues all. In a few short months, this government would have spent $500 billion. That is $500 billion. What you get for that? You get suffering, pain, flooding, tax, crime, unemployment, and the list could go on and on and on. But there's a reason why I raised that tonight. There's a reason why I raised that tonight. Because that is what the PNM has brought to you. And many of the speakers here tonight spoke about what this lady on my right has brought for you. And that is something that the PNM does not want you to remember. Because when it came time to prove themselves, they failed. You have to compare like with like. We can't compare like with this lady. They ain't like at all. Them ain't like nobody. It's hate, hate and more hate. We have had the experience and you get the opportunity to compare leader with leader. And when you compare leader with leader, you must agree. The track record says it all. This has been the best Prime Minister, proven fact in the history of this country. So when you have the opportunity, whenever they have the opportunity, because you could only run for so long, time will catch up with them. When you have the opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, let us commit to save Trinidad and Tobago, to restore Trinidad and Tobago, to put back Kamla Persad Bissessa back as Prime Minister and save this country. I thank you all very much. Thank you very much, Political Leader.
Thank you, MP. Can I call Councillor Derek from the Superior Corporation, please?
Come on, peoples are turning, your eyes are opening. Welcome to the revolution.
Good night to my UNC family. Good night to my political leader. So Trinidad and Tobago, I would approach it all differently. I want to ask you all of you in Trinidad and Tobago, put aside race, put aside Indian and African. Consider the future of your children. Compare 2010 to 2015, to 2015 to now. And you make the choice. It's as simple as that. Make the choice for the future of your children, your grandchildren. The only hope is the United National Congress led by Mrs. Kamla Persad Bissessa. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Derek. Can I call Rishi from the San Fernando City Corporation?
Honorable Political Leader, UNC family, good night.
tonight I just want to say a special thank you to my political leader for giving me the opportunity 3 years ago and having the faith in me to bring my seat home. And political leader, I want to promise you tonight that the next corporation we are going to bring home is the San Fernando City Corporation. I call on the people of Trinidad and Tobago and the people of San Fernando to bring back good governance to San Fernando under my political leader, Mrs. Kamla Persad Bisesa. Thank you.
Councillor Rajbal from the Kuva Tabakit Corporation.
Thank you, Honorable Political Leader, the best political leader and the Prime Minister this country has ever seen. Ladies and gentlemen, I see hope. We on this side see hope with a leader like Kamla Persad Bisesa. We have a leader of compassion and of intelligence against what we have now, one of arrogance and ignorance. So ladies and gentlemen, the call is for us to put back Kamla Persad Bisesa as Prime Minister and bring back hope to Trinidad and Tobago. I thank you.
Okay, these good times tonight will end shortly. So I'm looking who I can see to call. So I want to call the PR of our party, Dr. Megu.
Thank you. It is my privilege and honor to be standing next to this great, great woman. You know, we see her so often, we don't realize there will never be a woman like Kamla Persad Bisesa again. We are so privileged. There will never be a first woman attorney general after this woman. There will never be a first female leader of opposition after this woman. There will never ever be again a first leader of a parliamentary party as a woman, as this woman right here. There will never ever be the first woman prime minister after this woman here. And there will never be a better prime minister than this woman right here. And I want to say, for all those people who want to save Trinidad and Tobago, humble yourselves. Realize you cannot hold a candle to this great historical figure here. We must all come together. Humble yourselves under the leadership of Kamla Persad Bisesa, the only person in Trinidad and Tobago who can lead us to victory and save this country. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can we call Councillor Gangaram from the Kuva Tabakit Corporation, please?
Thank you very much, my political leader, MPs who are present here, you councillors, the hard-working UNC family. I want to wish you all very well and thank you very much for coming here. I would like to say thanks to my political leader, a person who always recognizes the hard-working people, the councillors, the MP, all you hard-working people who support her wherever we go. Although we get negative and positive, the positive always overcome the negative. I am sorry for my electoral district, the people of Trinidad and Tobago and the electoral district of Bridgeton Castle, to know the suffering they have been going through at this period under the PNM government. Rowley must go as soon as possible and let things run as it was before under this leader, Kamla Persad Bisesa. Very soon we will be in power. So I want my supporters to come out on the 4th. You know we have a strong support in Kuva South and the electoral district. I want to wish all my councillor colleagues from Kuva Tabakit Talparo, who has been working very hard for this party, and the leader has recognized that. Thank you very much. God bless you all.
Okay, we'll bring the curtain down. I'm calling Alderman Susan Holder from the Grandie Corporation.
Good night. Good night to my political leader. Yeah. To my UNC family and to those looking on. My political leader, it's a privilege for me to stand next to you. It's a privilege for me to stand by you. It's also a privilege for me to stand with you. It is said, for the lack of knowledge, the people shall perish. And I just want to give a little story here. You know, yesterday morning, I traveled from Sandy Grande to Port of Spain. And I saw two persons lying in the Maxi Hub, a man and a woman. But when I watched closely at them, I recognized it's people that I know. So I walked to them and asked them, why are you lying there this hour of the morning? They say, we have nowhere to live. I said, how do you mean you have nowhere to live? They say we had a food card. We had they were getting public assistance. And they take the public assistance away from them. They take the food card away from them. But when I watched at them properly, they were dressed in red jerseys with the PNM logo. So I wanted to know how all you in this colored jersey with a PNM logo and they take away your food card and your public assistance from you. So we got to be more knowledgeable about the things taking place. You know, Trinidad and Tobago lose everything that it had. Everything. We go on to nothing. And tonight I want to say to you people, don't be ignorant. Don't let party tie you up. For years, the PNM tie all you up. Let us come out of this and let us look for survival now. And the only party that will bring that to you is our leader and the United National Congress. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susan. And I want to call a brilliant economist who works in the opposition office, former Senator Tahaka Obika.
Thank you very much, Honorable Political Leader. UNC family, good evening. Now, I can't come and give a long political speech because we had many contributions tonight, and now is not my time to give that. But all I can say is this. How could we have imagined that in Trinidad and Tobago, after the work at educating over 70% of our citizens at the tertiary level under the leadership of Kamala Persad-Bissessar, now you have young doctors unemployed? Who would have imagined that in 2015, when they stained their finger, that our country could be producing graduates without jobs? Over 100,000 jobs have been lost. Now, we don't need to tell the population about the ills of the PNM anymore. They know it. It is for the people to make up their minds that they want Trinidad and Tobago to return to the paradise that has been lost when they voted for the PNM in 2015. I thank you very much, Congressman.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So good things end as they ended in 2015 under the PNM. And therefore we have a duty to the future generations. I told you last week, we do not own this planet. It is not our property. We do not own Trinidad and Tobago. But what we do, we hold it in trust for our children and their children and their children after them. So let's honor that. We have been given a great honor and gift to provide for future generations in this country. So whilst we may be a lost generation now, our country is collapsing and folding up in front of our eyes, all is not lost. always remember there is always hope. But we can only hold on to that hope if we are prepared to fight, to stand and fight. And will you do that? Will you stand up? Don't sit at home. I told you, what do you call them, Barry? Keyboard warriors. Type in, the UNC must do this, Kamla must do that, Kamla must go, Tanku must go, everybody must go, and they wouldn't say Rowley must go. They will not. Well, some say it, yes. We say it, Rowley must go, Rowley must go. And with him, his entire government. They have brought us to shame and disgrace. They have brought us to our knees. Our children are suffering, the young people, the women, and the men. Today, I said, we're having a fundraising dinner sometime. I said, but no pressure. UNC will do a fundraising dinner, raise some money for some hampers to help some people. Let me congratulate our MP Vandana, who has worked with the Ministry of Social Development to help us get a few food cards. Will not be enough. So we raised some funds. So I'm saying to this person, she said, boss, we don't like to speak of our troubles, but my husband is not working right now. I said, so what is he qualified to do? He has a degree, a university degree. So when Tap talked about that just now, yes, so many persons, you have a full education, you cannot get a job. Before we used to say, well, the education is a passport out of the poverty. Education is a key to a better life. So once you got an education, what did you expect? A good job, a sustainable job with a good salary, not anymore. So what next you must do? What next must you do? You should know that we should vote out Rowley. Rowley must go. That's what we have to do. Band together, work together, and let us remove this wicked, incompetent government. So tonight we had a different kind of Monday night virtual. Did you enjoy it? Maybe we can do some more of that. And I'm so happy I didn't have to talk non-stop because I have a little sore throat here. So please excuse me, but I think it went well. I thank all of you who contributed tonight. And let us continue with the fight and the struggle. So if I don't see you before, we have Parliament on Friday. We will be debating a private member's motion filed by MP Saddam Hussein on the horrendous state of crime in the country. So tune in on Friday. Several MPs will contribute. We have tried in every way to raise this as an urgent matter in the Parliament. But for that Parliament, nothing is urgent. I think the whole roof of the Parliament will collapse, and that is not urgent for them. So we had to wait months to get this motion onto the order paper and for the time to expire. So tune in on Friday, private member's motion. Saddam will pilot that for us. And thereafter, please remember, Victor is putting up the marching that we plan to do. We want you all to become involved, become engaged, be with your boots on the ground, not with the keyboards only, but we appreciate your comments as well. So God bless you all. Remember always, you have had leaders before me. Yes. You will have leaders after me, but guess what? You will never have a leader who loves you as much as I do. I thank you and God bless you all. Thank you very much.
So who feel the black? Who feel the white? I don't know. But it's settled tomorrow night. Who feel the wrong? Who feel the right? Come and go. And all who feel the too bright, let me jump up, let me wind up, party non-stop. Ramaje dingo like el kete, we come to play mass. Every creed and class, don't learn nothing pass. Like a ready TV, all the love inside the way. Uptown and ghetto, feeling the tempo. So current so, it's party they like so. Soon as we land, fun is the plan. We like to jam, like the man bam. Waving we hand inside the band, we inside the band. And if you cut me, you go see blood. And if you squeeze me, you go feel the love.